It says we're live. My phone shows our faces with a nice live signal, so that must be it. All right, everybody, thank you so much for being here. We have a very special guest. We're doing a new segment here, and I'm going to call Tour Talk. We're doing Tour Talk today with Chad Fribley. Very special guest because of your background, Chad, and I appreciate you coming on here. Chad is a teaching professional, current teaching professional, a PGA apprentice, former touring professional, and former professional out at Kapalua, where the PGA Tour is this week, kicking off the 2021 season at the Century Tournament of Champions. Chad, thanks so much for being here.
Yeah, good morning.
Today's episode is brought to you by Super Speed Golf. The Super Speed Golf Overspeed Training System is proven to help you swing every club in your bag faster, which will help you hit the ball farther and score lower. You'll see results as soon as your first session, and all it takes is just 5 minutes a day, 3 days a week, and can be easily incorporated into any training program or practice session. Use the link in the description to learn more and see for yourself why over 600 top touring pros trust Super Speed Golf. Use code MobilitasGolf for 10% off when you check out. That's MobilitasGolf. True Spec Golf. With over 20 locations around the world, True Spec Golf has quickly established themselves as worldwide leaders in custom club fitting. With over 35,000 head and shaft combinations from all the best brands, True Spec Golf uses a brand-agnostic approach to fit you with the best set of clubs perfectly suited for you and your game. Go to TrueSpecGolf.com to find a location near you, and be sure to tell them Coach Blaine referred you when you schedule an appointment. Rad Roller. If you're listening to this right now, you know that the Tour Shot Golf Academy, we believe when you can move better, you will play better. No one makes better, more effective mobility tools at a price you can afford than Rad Roller. With a comprehensive collection of mobility tools to choose from, Rad Roller tools will help you release tight muscles, reduce soreness, enhance recovery, and help you move better so you can play great golf. Click the link in the description to pick up an all-in kit or any of their amazing mobility tools. Sabre Golf. Practice only works if you do it correctly. In fact, practicing something incorrectly can have a negative impact on your game. Whether you're practicing at home or at the course, all Sabre Golf training aids are designed to be intuitive, effective, and durable. So whether you're using a Sabre Golf putting ruler at home to practice putting on your carpet like I do, or taking one of their short game mats to the course to dial in your wedges, or one of their other amazing products, Sabre Golf has designed their products to help you get the most out of your practice session, know you're practicing correctly, and help you build good habits. Use code MOBILITAS to save at checkout. That's MOBILITAS.
So, Chad, why don't you, before we get into kind of, we'll call it the tournament and the course and learning a little bit more about the event and the strategies that people are going to need to play well at this event, give us a little bit of a background for yourself, because obviously you used to be the pro out at Kapalua, really amazing place, which we'll get into, but you also have a background as a touring professional yourself. And I think the insight that you're going to be able to bring is going to be huge, because who better to talk to about the course that the tour is playing than the former pro who used to tour himself. So give us a little background about who you are and how you got into golf and how you found yourself on tour and working at Kapalua.
Wow. Yeah, a lot to answer there. Yeah, so it's been, sadly, I was thinking about it last night when I was actually watching the tournament. It's been just about 20 years now since I was out there. But got into golf a long time ago, as a lot of us do, parents, but specifically my dad, was out playing golf on weekends. Always wondered where he would take off to and what he was doing. And so I kind of started to tag along and got into caddying at a young age for my dad and his friends. When we moved to Portland, Oregon, we were lucky enough to join a club here. And I grew up in a great junior program with a lot of other kids in my neighborhood that played. Just kept at the game and really fell in love with it. It was one of my three main activities growing up. started to, played all the way up into high school, where we had a very, very competitive high school team in a very competitive environment in Portland, producing at the same class and time a player of Ben Crane, a lot of people know. But we had a lot of good players. We actually had off my high school team, 4 of the 5 of us played Division I college golf. And for one school to produce a team like that is it just doesn't happen. Normally, you're lucky if you get one person going to college, and we had 4 D1 athletes. From there, I went to New Mexico State. I enrolled in their professional golf management program. Was there for 5 years. I walked onto the team my 3rd year and played for 3 years. Following college, I still had the dream of playing, but my game still wasn't, it wasn't tour ready. But I just had this internal drive to just keep getting better, keep working at my game. I enjoyed the process of getting better, which is a big part of trying to improve. And so after graduation, I really was kind of lost on whether I was going to go to work or try and go play. And so I came home briefly to Portland, played a little bit on a mini tour here in Oregon, turned professional right away, started playing mini tour here. And I started traveling with a guy named Todd O'Neill, who a lot of people know here in the Northwest. And he's a little bit older than I am, but he recommended at the end of the season, said, hey, with your PGA background and your business background, and you're wanting to play, said, hey, I've got a great suggestion. You should go over to Kapalua. And I never even thought of that. I had, coming out of college, I had actually turned down a job at Pinehurst. And so passed that up, came home to play, met Todd, but we talked more about it. And he's a former assistant professional there as well. He put in a good word for me with the powers that be there. I interviewed with them and ended up being an assistant pro there starting in about October of '99. And so I went over, I packed up. I'd never, ever been to Hawaii, and packed up and went over there right before Thanksgiving. And it was quite an adventure for my first job out of college, to just go to such an unknown, strange, foreign place. But it's like, man, here's a chance to go live in Hawaii, work at a tour level facility. At that time, the resort had 3 golf courses still. Now they just have 2. But what sold me was Todd was, again, a good player, doing a lot of the same things I was. But he's like, hey, it's a chance. You go over there. These guys play all the time. You work like a 6-hour shift, 6 days a week. You work 6 to noon or noon to 6. And there's a game in the morning. There's a big game in the afternoon. And it just revolves around the 3 courses, or it revolves around the island. And it's just like, well, let's see, live in Hawaii, work at a tour golf course, and play golf every day. Sounds awful. So I was on board, so I went over to do it, and that's kind of from there. I've had quite a little adventure through the world of working at places and also playing as a tour professional for 10 years.
Oh, that is awesome! What a great place! First job. Let's go live in Hawaii. We're young, no kids. We want to play a lot of golf. Like, that's the dream right there.
Yeah.
Before we get into kind of the course and tying in, the tournament that we're watching this week on the tour, I'd love to just touch a little bit more on, what goes into the day in the life of a playing professional or a touring professional. I think there's a big disconnect. A lot of us at home, we watch players on tour. They make it look so easy. And then we have aspirations as well, whether we want to break 100 or 90 or 80 or whatever it is. But then there's this big disconnect between, okay, I want to do it, I see other people doing it, and then how do I do it? And it obviously takes time, it takes practice, and one of the things that I feel is overlooked is just what that day actually looks like. We hear about it a little bit on TV, and they're talking about the routines, and all right, guys like Tiger waking up at 4 o'clock and doing a workout and then playing 54 holes in a day, like all these things. Is that realistic, or what was your experience when you were playing on the tours? What's a typical day? What's a typical week? And what are you trying to accomplish, and why?
Oh, wow. Yeah, I think, again, good questions in there. thinking back to my experiences, again, 10 years playing full-time mini tours, trying to get to the PGA Tour, including doing Q school about 5 times. I felt like I was very close. But again, these guys now, I mean, there's so many good players for one, compared to like back in Jack Nicklaus's era and Arnold Palmer. There are so many good players, and there's so much better training between the evolution of the launch monitors and video cameras, and everybody's got video on their phones, and now really you're seeing with DeChambeau, you're seeing the evolution of the physical training really come to a head. And I was when I was playing, it was kind of like at the beginning of launch monitors, and really still in the early stages of the fitness, because I'm the same age as Tiger Woods. He's a month older. And so you saw how much Tiger changed the game. That was kind of the beginning of the fitness era. But I think where again, like you said, the disconnect between average players and the tour level players, these guys, it is their job. It is, you think about the 40 to 60 hour jobs the rest of us work. That is what they are doing in their training. If they're not at the golf course chipping, putting, hitting balls, playing, they're at home doing something. They're at the gym with their trainer. They're traveling with physiotherapists and cooks, and they've got a staff with them. It is a no joke business out there, because there's a lot of money on the line. A typical week, even when I was playing, especially here in the off season, I would be home here in Portland. I'd be at the gym. I had a facility I was training at in Beaverton. I would be over there at probably 5:30 in the morning for an hour and a half long physical class. Mm-hmm. Go through that. I might do some personal work for about an hour after, go home, rest and recover for a little bit. And then I'd be out of the course for 5 or 6 hours, hitting balls, chipping, putting, playing, and then come home and relax in the evening. And I still feel that to this day, there's probably more I could have been doing. Because that's what the guys that are on tour are, the ones that put in that extra effort above and beyond everybody else, beyond the guys that are dreaming about being on tour. They're can I push it an extra hour here, an extra hour there? That being said, Hawaii and Kapalua this week is a little different for these guys. It was kind of a fun event to be at. When you look at the training aspect, you're hearing a lot about it this week. You've got Xander Schauffele's coming in off of battling COVID for the last couple of weeks. Dustin Johnson, is coming in with very little practice under his belt in the last week. They had holiday time off. A lot of the guys do get there about a week early because it's kind of off season. And they're just hanging out. They're having fun in Hawaii with their family and friends. And you're hearing a lot about that. But, I remember seeing Ernie Els there a week early, just hanging out at the condos in the hotel with his family. And they're not playing and practicing a whole lot. So there's a little bit of rust, but man, they're still putting up some epic scores already. So this week's a little bit different. But then it's because of the fact it's a winners only, this year expanded to Tour Championship event. So it's a guaranteed small field. They're guaranteed getting paid. It's a nice way to kind of roll into the year. Next week really kicks off the hardcore start of the season and the start of the grind.
So let's talk about something that a lot of, I'm sure, not just, your average golfers, but everybody who plays wants to know is we've established that a lot of work goes into the training and the practice to get to that certain level. But the reality is that for so many of us, that's just not practical. Like you said, we have 9 to 5 jobs. We're working 40 hours a week. Now, that being said, how would you, because you're also a teaching professional, you give lessons currently and everything like that. But let's say you took all your experience, what you need to do, where that person's trying to go to. Let's say, what are the essential elements that you would take and kind of hack that person's progress? They don't have 40 hours a week to dedicate to their game, but maybe they have 4. How, based on what you saw that you needed to succeed on tour, what are the areas that players should be focusing on, or where are the areas that you focus on with your students? And then what we'll get to in a little bit is, does that differ for the players this week at Kapalua? because of the course setup. And we'll get into course strategy specific to that course in a little bit. But that's kind of where I'm headed with the question is, if we only have so much time to work on it, from your experience, that there's certain things that we should work on to get the most out of our training time, particularly if we know that we have a trip coming up. If we know we're going to go to Hawaii for a week, if we know we're going to go over to Scotland for a week, which that's a whole other story we'll get into with your trip over there. But, essentially, we hear tour players talking about, hey, I take my training schedule and I try to peak around the majors. I try to train around the majors, right? Well, for the average person, maybe that's, I want to train around a trip. I'm going to go to a weekend getaway. I'm going to go to Hawaii for a week, so forth. In your experience, where should people be focusing their efforts? If they only have a little bit of time, where's the biggest bang for their buck? What's going to get them around the course and have the most fun?
Ooh, God, especially when I look at like my teaching, my experience playing a lot. Well, I should say, yes, my teaching. I rely a lot on my experiences from playing mini tours and stuff for 10 years. Having, I am lucky enough. I've won 25 professional events. As one of one comment came in early last night, I've got a couple course records, about 4 or 5 course records. And what I saw specifically, in pro-ams is a lot of what influences how I teach. The biggest, I'm playing pro-ams, you're playing with the working people, the everyday weekend warriors out there, which most of us are now, and where their struggles come from. So one of the biggest things I try and ingrain into people and then get them to focus on is definitely the short game. Short game in general, just because when we start to break down somebody that shoots 90 to 100, which is where most of our group is where are the bulk of your shots coming from, and really understanding that. Because when we watch people on the range, you look up and down the line, how many people do you see go in and the first thing they do is grab driver, or spend most of their time working on driver? Or when we give lessons, what do they want to work on? They want to work on the driver. But in reality, that only accounts for about 14 shots, maybe a couple penalty shots here and there. But still, that's nowhere near the 40 putts that you're going to have. And then when you add in the wedge work on top of that, we're talking 60 of your 90 shots coming inside 100 yards. So again, bang for your buck, especially with shortened time, working on and having a really efficient short game. I saw, again, playing pro-ams, people really struggling with how to hit less than full swing wedge shots. They might get a hit, might be in trouble off the tee. They hit a great recovery shot. I'm 40 yards out, and then I blade it over the green, or I dump it short, and then it's taking me four shots to get in from 40 yards. That's just the biggest throwaway and waste. Either a bad chip and a 3 putt, or 2 chips to get on and 2 putts. It's just such a simple area where we have more control over the game. You don't have to be, distance is not a priority. You don't have to be as coordinated as good. But also, I really feel, and my belief on it is that a strong wedge game, as you work on your distance control, your contact, and your left and right dispersion, as you dial that in with your wedges, if you imagine you take your worst right and left shot with a wedge and draw that line out to 200 yards, that's going to show your dispersion at a 200-yard shot. So if I want to get my long irons better, which I don't hit many of in a round, I still need to get my wedge dispersion tighter and my control on my wedges better in order to get my 8 and 9 iron better. As my 8 and 9 iron get better, my 6 and 7 iron get better. It's a filter effect into those clubs we just don't hit as often. For myself personally, I still regret, one of my regrets from playing was that I did not go seek out a short game specialist, which there are, again, more better trained, knowledgeable people out there now, like a James Seekman or some other folks along those lines. But I regret not going and doing that, because when I was around between Kapalua, I also worked at PGA West, where they have a tour event every year. I was around some stuff up in the Seattle area. I've been around a number of tour locations. And when you go to a tour event, no matter what one it is, if you have the time, go watch the guys on the range. You're going to see 100 different ways to swing a golf club. They have the commonalities are they have a great impact position, but 100 different ways to get there. But really what separates them and what separates the winners is the elite level of their short game. Those guys get up and down from everywhere, and they spend a lot of time doing it. Plus it's less stress on the body than the full swing.
You know, it's funny you say that, because my first tour, not my first tour experience, I shouldn't say that, because I did go to my first tour event. My dad took me to in like the mid to late 90s, but I was pretty young, so I don't remember much of it. But my first adult tour event was in 2009 at the US Open at Bethpage Black. And one of my favorite experiences there was going to the range. It was the first time I saw a Tiger in person. And of course, there's this massive crowd around. So he's way off in the distance on the range. So my friends and I, we say, all right, well, we're going to hang out by the short game green in the bunker area. We're going to watch who we can watch. Well, 5 minutes later, Tiger comes over to the bunker and we're like, okay, cool. We got front row seats. And I'll never forget it, because it's really just ingrained this mark in my memory. But I remember Tiger goes into this bunker. He takes a wedge and he chunks it. And it just barely gets out of the bunker, but it kind of just rolls up to maybe a foot or two from the hole. And I was like, oh man, that wasn't very good, but you know, whatever. It's Tiger. He's just first shot in the bunker, right? Next shot, he clips it clean 5 feet beyond the hole, tucks it back to a foot. Next shot, he chunks it out, rolls it up to a foot. Next shot, he hits it past, sucks it back, and he just keeps going, chunk and run, zip it back, chunk and run, zip it back. And by the time he's done with like 8 to 10 shots, they're all within the flag, like a 3-foot putter circle, which was amazing. Now, that being said, because this is where I think you can provide a lot of insight for us. On the one side is developing the skill to do it. On the other side is developing the mind to execute on that skill. Okay, and like you said, you hold a number of course records. You've shot one of your personal best rounds on the home of golf. You've played competitively, you've won 25 events. So, you know, for all of us at home, we're thinking, great, I'm going to go work on my short game. But then I go to the course and play with my buddies and I'm in my own head. I keep topping it, thinning it, shanking it. I can't translate it. So from your experience as a player, as a professional, how do you take that essence that you've worked on out onto the course and actually use it? There's a big disconnect there. What are your tips and tricks and hacks for that?
Ooh, that is, as we know, that is one of the great mysteries of, especially of teaching. But playing in general, I mean, that's so hard. It's just, I think for most people, they don't practice like they play.
Mm-hmm. And what does that mean?
Well, you go out and you go to the range and maybe you take a lesson or a few lessons or something where you're focused on technical movements, in most instruction, focused on technical movements, and you're not actually playing golf on the range. But then you go to the course and you start thinking technical movements, positions, things like that. It's working in the wrong side of your brain. So some of it is a little bit of brain training, working on emotion long enough that it becomes almost more of a subconscious movement or a reflex. But having a real good routine is big. You have, obviously we all need to spend some time working on some technical skills, learn new things. But then, again, when you structure your practice, do your technical work in the beginning and then finish up your practice with doing more real world scenarios, whether you mentally and visually play the first 4 holes on the range. You hear a lot about that. So that's, go through your full routine, tee up a ball, hit your driver at your target, evaluate how you hit it. Well, what am I going to have in for my second shot? Go back, pull that club, go through the full routine. So there's things like that, simulated real golf on the course. Another thing is, especially like with the chipping and putting, is doing things where when you're practicing and especially if you're out and you have a short game green that you can actually work on, don't use more than 3 balls. So that way you're constantly moving around, forcing your brain to calculate and readjust to the situation and the scenario. And because real world golf isn't sitting there and just pulling ball after ball and hitting 100 from the same location. It's moving around, trying different lies, and just playing shots, especially learning how, opening and closing the face on a wedge changes playing conditions and contact and flights and things like that. Another great thing to do is when you're on the golf course, if it's a slow day and you have the time, if you're playing early in the morning or late in the evening, play extra shots, try different lies, try different situations, try to really emphasize what it is you and your instructor are working on, commit to those shots. But the greatest thing, and this relates to probably any high-end athlete training for an event, whether it's golf or football or anything else, is that they train harder than what they need in their real world situation. So when they get into tournament mode, they've practiced and physically trained harder than what they need in competition. You've heard DeChambeau this week talk about his recent, quest on improving driver speed. He's been working with Kyle Berkshire, the long drive champion. He's training to the point of blacking out, which was really interesting. He's pushing his body that hard. But all these athletes, again, they train above and beyond what they need. So that's the extra time in the gym is more than what they need to get through a round of walking on the golf course. It is more golf balls than what they hit during the course of a round. So that way it seems easy when they're on the golf course. It's a walk in the park compared to their practice days. One of the best stories I ever heard, I mentioned my high school teammates. I had one that went to Stanford. So he was down there right when Tiger was getting ready to leave. And the story I heard about his days of practice is like they'd be out doing a chipping and putting game. And he's doing this with Nota Begay and Casey Martin, who a lot of people know. And what they would be doing, as most of us do, we work on trying to chip it close so we have an easy putt, especially in a competitive environment. Well, what Tiger was doing, and again, the foresight he had and the mentality he had that most of us don't, Tiger was purposely chipping it to 10 feet. So one, he's picking his target at 10 feet instead of trying to get it close. So he's being specific with where he wants to leave it, whether it's a right to left putt, an uphill putt, or whatever it is, but he's leaving it at 10 feet. So he has to make a 10-footer under pressure. Instead of trying to chip it close and make it easy, he's trying to put himself under pressure and create more pressure in his practice than what he faces on the course. So now, whereas the rest of us in that environment, we try and chip it close, and then all of a sudden when we chip it outside of that 3 or 4 foot easy one, we don't know what to do, or we're under more pressure. He's like, I hold these 10 footers all day in practice. Anything inside of that is cakewalk.
So what are some of the unique obstacles or unique situations that the players are going to face this week at Kapalua? Obviously, the course, you've played it. Let's start off with, especially because of the landscape and the topography being as it is, are there any courses maybe on the mainland or any other courses that you know of on the tour that are similar that people can relate to?
Well, since especially for anybody watching, listening, that is from the West Coast, again, that's where most of the Hawaii tourist travel comes from. Golf in Hawaii is a whole unique animal.
Right.
Very, very unique. A lot of people, down South Texas and stuff like that, you have wind to deal with. You go out to the east and stuff, you have Bermuda to deal with, but you have very few places in the world that have wind, grain, elevation changes, and you have all the environments that Hawaii has. And that's pretty much throughout most of the courses and most of the islands, because since they're built on the island side of the volcanoes, they tend to have a great deal of elevation change, but you're always going to have wind. You're always going to have grain from the grass. So even though they're tearing the course up with their scores, it is, and again, this goes back to, my friend Todd O'Neill that suggested I go work there, is because it is a great place as a player to work on your game because it is so difficult. The elevation changes, uphill, downhill, side lies, into strong breezes on a typical day. And then you have the grain of the grass to worry about. So it took me quite a while. It took me a while to improve my game over there, just because of getting used to those conditions. So I don't think you can really replicate a whole lot of that over here. You can replicate individual parts of it, but with what they're facing over there, it is a super fun golf course. I really enjoyed all the courses over there, but it's a super fun golf course. That the elevation changes present one fun thing. But I think the one thing when people go to Hawaii especially need to remember, or living anywhere where there's typically wind, is one, you have to control the flight of the golf ball. You hit it too high, it's not going to get to your target. You hit it too low, the wind's going to knock it down. You've got to hit it just right. And one of the best stories I had from my time there, my first day there, I played in the big game, and I got paired with one of the other professionals there from Kapalua. So I was just getting to meet the guy, and I was asking him, have him guide me around the course. We get to this one par 3, the wind's just whipping into us. And I look at him and I said, "Hey, how far do you think it's playing?" And he's like, "I have no idea." He's like, "I'm going to hit it this high." And it's like, I was so blown away, because that's not how my mind worked when I got there. But it didn't take long to figure out what he talked about. It didn't really matter what club you hit. It was hitting the right window and trajectory to get it to go through. Because again, too high, it gets knocked down. Too low, it gets knocked down. It's got to be a certain height to penetrate the wind. And so that's something that a lot of people aren't going to understand. So, kind of roundabout way, but it is, again, it's tough conditions, fun, super fun golf course. It's very realistic on the golf games and simulators if you get a chance to play it on there. But where I was kind of going with that is places in the wind, courses are designed to play that way. So even though you might, especially if you go to Hawaii, you might want a sunny, warm, no wind day would be ideal. Hawaii gets very hot when there's no wind. The wind helps keep it a little bit cooler and more manageable, but the courses play their hardest when there's no wind. I mean, even the Plantation course, if the wind blows reverse, just the difficulty of holes will switch. The ones that are easy now become hard. The hard ones become easy. But you need the wind to help shorten up the golf course. If there's no wind, every hole plays long. I mean, you see even the 12th hole out there is one they can drive close to. It's 435 yards, but that hole typically blows straight downwind, and it's a downhill rolling tee shot. So when there's no wind, they're going to be back there. I mean, it's going to play 80 to 100 yards longer than it does. So you may root for no wind, but again, the courses will play more difficult in those conditions.
Now, based off what you know about the course, who's going to tend, not necessarily based on the leaderboard now, but who's going to tend to play well there? Is it somebody with a good short game? Is it a good putter? Is it somebody who bombs the ball? Is it somebody who's accurate off the tee? What kind of skills are rewarded at Kapalua?
Well, I think this week it's typical of a lot of courses, because again, you have so many of the top level guys, because it's the winners and stuff that are there, and the tour guys from the tour championships. So that's 35 players on tour, hands down. But it's the guys that really, not everybody likes every course. Not every course fits your eye, but this course, the fairways are so wide. Fairway, again, that's forgiveness with the wind and everything. Fairways are up to 100 yards wide in spots. But you're not really seeing the ultra bombers. You're not seeing Cameron Champ and DeChambeau. DeChambeau got up there a little bit more yesterday, but he's still not at the top yet. But it's the guys that really embrace the week and embrace the environment. And that's kind of what it is. I think most weeks for the winners out there, they have to like the course. They have to enjoy the environment that they're in. They have to be having fun with it. If you don't have fun, you're not going to play well. And so that's why you see so many of the guys, Justin Thomas, who won in a playoff last year, he's up there. He struggled a little bit at the end yesterday, but he's up there again. Schauffele's up there again. He's played well the last 4 years out there, winning it once and losing out last year. Patrick Reed's up there again. You see these guys repeat every year that are up near the top because they enjoy the environment. I mean, Justin Thomas gets to come over there. He won last year. he likes this golf course. Then he goes to the Sony Open where he shot 59. So, Thomas is always a great pick when in Hawaii because he likes it. But then you see guys like Tiger started to skip this event because he won it a few times, but it was so far to come from Florida all the way over there to Hawaii. He doesn't play Sony, so it's really going over for 1 week. It's these guys that come over they're there for 3 weeks essentially because they come a week early. So those are the guys I look for, the guys that are really enjoying it. You see the guys, Patrick Reed had on a flowered shirt yesterday. I mean, they're embracing it and they love the environment over there. So those are the guys I look for.
Well, what a perfect representation of, how to embrace the game as a whole. We're seeing it in Hawaii kind of, amplified a little bit, but that's got to be true for a lot of it. And I'm curious, just to kind of tie it in with your experience, did you find that was true for the tournaments you did well in and the ones that you won in, that, it was a comfortable course, you felt well, your game was in shape?
Absolutely. I mean, it took me, again, through some trial and error and failure, especially. I had to sit back. It took a few years to see the pattern start to evolve. I had a lot of success up on the Dakotas tour where I played for 8 years or so in the summertime because I really had a lot of fun up there. But when I went out and played like the Hooters tour or the Canadian tour and things like that, where it was, they rented the course for the week, you're there a few days early to do practice rounds. And it was much, guys weren't out having as much fun. It was much more business-like. I didn't do as well on those. And again, it took me a while to see that pattern, but then I go out to the Dakotas tour where it's a, you're traveling a lot more, you're changing cities every couple of days. You have some short events, you have some long events, but it's just the interaction with the people we had up there, the host families in the towns were phenomenal. It was a big event in each town when we went in, but we'd be out, I had a core group of guys I traveled with, we'd be out having fun at night, and it was just a lot more fun. And so it made the golf more enjoyable. It was less of that business grind where it felt like work. It was more fun up there. And those are the ones where I would play better. Even if my game wasn't sharp, I had fun. And that's been something important for me now in my post tour life, is just to really, when I get on the course, to enjoy my time when I'm out there, enjoy the environment, enjoy the walk, enjoy the company I'm with. Because if you don't do that, why are we doing it?
And on that note, before I get back into the course for a moment, I want to touch on that because not too long ago, this just reminded me, not too long ago, you were in a similar situation where you had taken some time off from playing and you said, you know what, I'm going to go out and play. And you went to your favorite courses there in Portland and you put up a pretty good number. If I remember right, 9 under, I think it was. Tell us a little bit about that round and just a little bit of context, because like you were saying, you hadn't been playing in a while, but I think there's a lot that people can learn from how you were able to go through that round and the expectations of how you managed that score.
Yeah. So that was at Rose City Golf Club here in Portland, where I've been playing with the men's club for 10 plus years. And again, I go out there when I have a free Saturday to play, just because I enjoy the golf course. It's not overly difficult, but it's more about the environment and the guys out there. The people I get to play with, the personalities is really what it is. It's this core group of guys that have been out there for a long time. And it's like you can be gone for 1 week to 6 months. You go out there and you just pick right back up with where you left off. And nothing changes out there. But the personalities are great. I really enjoy playing with the guys. And again, it's a fun golf course for me. Just the way it lays out, it's a chance to go out and go score. But that particular day was interesting because I hadn't been playing in a while and went out with low expectations for one. And I didn't hit it great. I actually outlined the whole round for my students once, and I kind of outlined the tee shots and where my ball ended up or where my second shots ended up, and asked people to guess what I shot. And most people guessed I shot 74 or 75. And then when you add in the rest, the fact I just made I just had an unbelievable putting day. And it just, again, goes back to what we talked about before about the short game. Is like, I did not hit the ball great, especially off the tee. I'm in the trees. I almost hit it out of bounds on the second hole. I was kind of in recovery mode, but I chipped it close when I had to. I think I had 26 putts or something that day. So it was a lot of fun to begin with. It wasn't stressful, but it just, yeah, just more about the fun part of it, joking around, having fun, being able to laugh at yourself when you hit a bad shot. And that's another part, I think, too, to improving your game is really understanding that you can hit good shots that get bad breaks, and it's not a fault of the swing. It's not a reason to get upset. But proper evaluation of the shots is the important thing to growth. I mean, you need to, whether it's training or on the course, you need to have good feedback and the right feedback. But if we're constantly overreacting to the bad shots, one, it's not going to be fun, but the brain latches onto those peaks and valleys of emotions. And the more you latch on and create those big peaks on bad shots, that's what the brain's going to remember and recall. And so that's what's more likely to come out, especially when you're under pressure of trying to produce a shot.
So let's go back to the course. And I want to go to kind of a couple quick little fun questions, starting with, what's your favorite hole out on the plantation course and why? I know, right?
Well, I mean,
how about maybe what's your favorite par 3, favorite par 4, favorite par 5? Does that help?
Sure.
No. Okay. I'm trying. I know. There's 18 great holes.
There are. Well, again, the setting is so amazing out there because you're on that side of that hill. You're looking at Molokai, especially this time of year. The whales are going right through the channel there. I was based out of the Bay course, which is further down, just down the street there, but right up onto the ocean. And I mean, you would see whales. You could hit them with your driver. They'd come in so close. And they're there for a few months, and it's great. But the scene, you're looking out at the ocean, you see another island right there. You're seeing whales, and it's warm. It's great. But Kapalua, I mean, this course is really unique in the fact that I don't think it has one signature hole that a lot of courses strive to have. Because of the views, you end up with a lot of signature holes out there. One of the holes that jumps out at me is the 6th hole, downhill par 4, because it's one, especially for anybody that's played it, or again, if you play it on a simulator, and this is how I kind of tested the legitimacy of some of the simulators, even on Tiger Woods' game. Downhill par 4, where if the wind's blowing the right way, the guys can drive it down on the green. If the wind blows the wrong way, they're going to be stuck at the top of the hill hitting 9 irons, 8 irons, wedges into this little sliver of a green where it falls off into the ravine on the right. But what a lot of people, if you don't get to play there a lot, you don't get to try this shot. But from the top of the hill, you can actually take like a 7 iron and aim it about 45 degrees to the green and hit about a 30-yard bump and run. And this thing will just trundle across the hill, catch the ridge, go all the way right down into the middle of the green every time. And it's just to be able to use those banks and hills and run it along the ground, much more like Scottish golf, is really, really fun out there on this course. So that's one of my favorite par 4s out there. The other one would be 14, the short uphill drivable one that you see the guys have a decision to make. Seeing a lot more layups so far this year, which is interesting because you've got, again, that one kind of depends on the distance for the guys, but also which way the wind's blowing, because you've got hazard all up the penalty area, all up the right side, running really tight to that green. The 18th hole is a blast. It really is. I have eagled that hole before. We had one day where the wind was blowing right, and I absolutely tomahawked the drive off that tee, and I got it down in the ravine. I mean, I landed on the right side of the fairway up on the hill, and this thing took off running. I ended up almost in the left hazard at the bottom of the hill and had like an 8 iron into that hole, and it's 650 yards, and I had 8 iron in. Other days though, you can't even most days for the rest of us, you can't even come close to reaching it, because it's just not running out as much as it does this week. Par 3, number 8's fun because you have to hit it over a big ravine, and it's a real kind of gut check type shot, committing to your flight trajectory, trusting if you throw it out to the right, you're going to let the wind bring it in. If you come up short, you're in a hazard. If you miss to the right too far, you're in a bunker or hazard. But it's a fun little backstop hole. So
now, where are we going to see players struggle? Are there key strategy holes? Are there holes that are potentially going to determine the outcome of the tournament, or holes that people really need to be careful on?
Well, they went through they completely regrassed the golf course last year. So it's playing a little bit different. When I was there, they used to it was like all Bermuda, and they used to actually scalp the greens to get them fast enough up to tour speed. There was virtually no grass on the greens. And so it's a little bit different, playing a little bit different. This is the second year for this new grass, and it's breaking in a little bit better. Sticking points, a lot of it depends on the weather. I think they're supposed to have pretty good weather. Thursday was supposed to be, I think, the worst wind day, so it doesn't look like they're going to get any big gusty days. But really, it comes down to, I think, where guys can separate themselves is going through 12, 13, and 14, the 3 back-to-back-to-back par 4s, because as you saw, that's kind of where Justin Thomas struggled yesterday.
Right.
He hooked his tee shot on 12 and 13, and those 12 is a short scoreable hole with a good tee shot. You're either up by the green chipping, or you have a short pitch down the hill. 13 is a difficult hole because when they hit driver, the fairway really necks in. It's a big right to left slope in that fairway. And then the green and the second shot present some good difficulty. 14 with the par 4, again, deciding if you go for it with driver, do you leave yourself in a good spot? Are you in a greenside bunker? Did you hit it in the penalty area? Or do you lay up and take the wedge and the easy 4, if not a 3? So you can have some good movement, probably more movement in those 3 holes than a lot of the others.
Awesome. So it sounds like that could go either way, right? That's your opportunity to kind of make a couple of birdies, or it could get away from you and kind of make your score go up, which is going to be huge. Let me finish with, do you have a prediction for who's going to win, or what the winning score is going to be?
I think you're going to have to get to probably around 22, 23 under. I think Ernie Els has the record at like 30 or 31. I don't think you're going to see that. But I mean, you're seeing, like yesterday, you saw a lot of 6, 7, 8 unders. 8 under the first day was leading. So I think, it's going to definitely take up there around 22, 23. A lot of guys within 2 shots of the lead right now. Dustin's a little bit rusty. He's had some time off recently. I think Justin Thomas will figure it out. He went through a rough patch. He closed with a birdie. He's still only 2 shots back. Justin Thomas is a strong pick there. Xander Schauffele is another good pick. The last one I would probably throw in there would be Patrick Reed. Not my personal favorite. He's also gone through an equipment change. See, he's playing Titleist now, gone away from Callaway. But he's embracing the environment. He's closing really, really well. He almost eagled 18 both of the first 2 days, which that can be a separator at the end come Sunday. So those would probably be my 3 guys to really watch the next 2 days.
Awesome. And that's a pretty deep score. That's always fun to watch. As much as we love watching things like the US Open and watching the guys struggle and finish 1 over, it's also just as fun to watch them have 5 to 8 birdies in a round. That's always really cool. And especially when you talk about Justin Thomas, I mean, I'm with you. He's done well in Hawaii before. He knows he can go sub 60. So if he can just hang in there, that would be really awesome. All right. So let's finish by asking this. How can people find or get in touch with you, learn more, take a lesson, anything like that?
Yeah, if anybody wants to reach out, interested in talking to me or coming in for a lesson, if you're in the Portland area, I'm currently at Red Tail Golf Center in Beaverton, Oregon. You can reach me through their website at golfredtail.com, or you can reach me directly at chadf@ryggolf.com.
Awesome. Well, Chad, I really appreciate your time coming in. Is there any last favor or ask or best practice or anything that you want to leave for anybody watching?
Well, I think again, as I kind of send a reminder out to my students right now, just because you're either working a full-time job, kids, as my world revolves around right now, or again, you're in bad weather because it is still winter and you can't get out. I mean, make a commitment, create that habit as we talk about in our meetings, but create that habit of at least, making some swings at home. Get your hands on the club daily, get moving. Any work you can do now will put you that much further ahead come springtime. But, like I'm challenging my students right now, and I'm doing it myself, and I'm going to do it when we get done here, is, even make 50 to 100 swings a day. You can make 100 practice swings a day. And since you're not actually hitting balls, if you could do that in your garage, in a living room or something like that, make 100 swings will take you less than 10 minutes in your house. And normally at a range, it would take you over an hour to do that. So just getting in and getting those swings and working on those, maybe your wedge technique, but getting your hands on the club, getting moving, stay stretched out, and just make the commitment to 100 swings a day. Because, man, if you can't get out for 2 weeks to the course for snow or something like that, that's still 1,400 swings in 2 weeks versus doing nothing.
Yeah.
And you start adding that up over a couple weeks or a couple months here, that puts you way ahead by March.
I love that, Chad. When you just say the gravity of that number, to hear that, to say that could have been 1,400 swings in 2 weeks that you could have done in roughly an hour's worth of time. If it takes you 6, 10, 12 minutes at a session, that's awesome. And the momentum of just doing that and moving is going to be huge. Well, Chad, I can't thank you enough for being on here. I'm going to be watching some golf today. I'm going to be thinking about everything that you talked about, and I feel like I have a much better insight about the course.
Yeah, it is. It's a lot of fun. It's an enjoyable, again, if you get a chance, it's a great golf course to go to. I know it's a little bit spendy up there, but it's a fun course, epic views. It's one of the few courses, though, in Hawaii that, again, even if they moved it here to the mainland, it would still be a great golf course. But again, I got to say real quick, it's been fun. But again, I had some good experiences, some good stories. Just if I had a minute, I'll just share 2 quick stories about it.
Yeah. 100%.
So as an assistant professional over there, so again, when I was there, we had 3 golf courses plus a teaching academy. So we had around about 20 professionals on staff there. And so your first year there, the tournament is unique because being a smaller field event, they let the staff there pretty much run the event, which no other event does. So we're very hands-on, very involved. And your first year there as an assistant, you have to kind of pay your dues. And so one of the funny things is tournament prep, which a lot of people don't realize, starts months ahead of an event.
Yeah.
We're building grandstands and stuff. So one of your duties or punishments there as a first year assistant is you have to go set up all the gallery ropes and stakes on the entire property. And this is a massive property. There's points on the course where what we don't see is guys are getting shuttled in vans on about 3 locations from green to tee because the walk is too big. So we have to go out with sledgehammers, ropes, stakes, carry this all around on carts and stuff like that. But we have to pound the entire golf course, which, as most people know, a typical course is a 5-mile walk.
Right.
And this is much, much bigger. And we're doing all the ropes and stakes. So it's a week's worth of pounding ropes and stakes in the sun out there and setting that up. And that's the staff doing that. That's the professionals. Beyond that, each year you're there, you get more specific duties. My second year there, I had a great job during tournament week. I sat in a scoring tent on the 9th green and I just go watch the guys play, collected scorecards and faxed them to the media center. So that was good. But the last thing I'll say is that, again, these guys are relaxed. If you ever get a chance to go, this is a great chance to approach these guys. They're there, they're relaxed. But anybody looking for an autograph out there, approach these guys after a round, practice days, not when they're heading to the first tee. And they're going to be a lot more approachable, more willing to do stuff for you. Especially this is a good event because there's less gallery on a typical year, non-COVID year. You get up close. They're more on vacation. But the 1 year I was there, Tiger and Duval came out. We didn't know if Duval was going to come. This is the year he showed up when he was completely shredded in the off season, and everybody was just blown away. But he and Tiger show up on Tiger's jet. They come in for a last minute practice round, and they're taking carts in the practice rounds because, again, the property is just gigantic. So it's just the two of them. They go whipping off. And so nobody in the gallery can keep up with them. Some of us staff, we had our own carts from out doing work. So we're keeping up. We're watching this late practice round going on, and they're going down. And again, the example of how much fun they're having, they're going down the, I want to say it was the 7th hole. Yeah, I believe it was the 7th hole. They're flying down. They hit their tee shots. These guys are playing in like less than an hour. They're flying down the 7th hole in this cart, and Tiger's driving. He gets down by the tee shot and gets down there. Just does what a lot of us have done. He's on this big downhill hole. He's flying down the fairway, hits the brakes, spins the wheel, and does a big donut in the fairway right up by his ball. And it's just, again, they're just having a good old time because nobody can keep up with them. Right. So they can just kind of goof around, do what they want. And then they go to the 8th hole, the par 3, and they both hit it inside like 3 feet. And they're just motoring along. But to watch them come down, spin the cart in the fairway, doing a 360 was pretty funny. So it was good. They have some good parties over there. Saw those guys in some different environments and stuff. But it's always fun too to peek in the bags and see what's new this year.
Oh, that's so awesome. What I would give to see Tiger spin a golf cart.
Yeah. His personality, you could see some differences, a little different than what you see on the course all the time.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, Chad, what a perfect way to kind of wrap this up. Those are the stories that we can't get elsewhere. So I appreciate you sharing them, and I appreciate you coming on here and sharing your wealth of knowledge. Everybody reach out to Chad. If you're in the Northwest, if you're in the Portland area, hit him up, go get a lesson. Chad, thank you so much for being here. I'll be talking to you very soon.
Sounds good. Appreciate it.
If you've enjoyed this episode and want to learn more, go to tourshotgolf.com to learn how you can play the best golf of your life. Move better, play better.